Evening and welcome to this
Recording in progress.
particularly welcome to all councillors who are all present in chambers this evening, and to those members of the public who have joined us in the gallery and those who are joining us via the webcast. Before we begin, I'd ask Councillor Gibson to give the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel a sense of pride and privilege to live and work on Cammeraygal land. Cammeraygal land has been kind to me and my family. Cammeraygal land is glorious land. Cammeraygal land was never ceded, always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. Are there any disclosures of interest?
Yes, item 10.2, non-pecuniary, but I will excuse myself.
Thank you. Any others? This meeting is being recorded and made publicly available on Council's website. Those present should refrain from making any defamatory statements. By attending the meeting, you're giving consent to your image and voice being webcast. Councillors, council staff and members of the public must ensure that mobile telephones are turned to silent during meetings of council. Councillors who need to use their phone to text, talk or engage in social media activity must leave the chamber to do so. That brings us to the minutes. Is there a mover for confirmation minutes? Councillor Santa, second. Councillor Berrigan, any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We have a number of speakers who've registered to speak on two items tonight. Is there Councillor Berrigan?
Madam Mayor, I have a procedural motion that we move to open a public forum, that we bring items 10.3 and 11.1 forward.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lamb, any discussion? All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. So that now brings us to item 10.3. The planning proposal for 50 to 56, 70 to 72 and 78 to 88 Parraween Street, Cremorne, post-exhibition report. There is one registered speaker who will attend remotely, Ms. Jennifer Hill. And she is not in the waiting room. In that case, what I will do is I'll stand that item down for a moment and we'll proceed to item 11.1. The notice of motion 14 of 2023, construction delays in Blythe Street, Kirribilli. There are two registered speakers. The first is Anthony Binning. If you would come forward, please. Thank you. You take that seat, and if you would give your name and who you represent.
Tony Binning, owner of Kirribilli Village Cafe, now Bakari. Kirribilli.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share my experience with the works that recently got done in Blythe Street. I own the coffee shop that sort of is directly there, restaurant, pardon me. Yeah, so I purchased it last year in September, and you know, I heard about these works starting, and there was from all the things that I heard and read, July, August is where they were supposed to be done in the winter time. You know, this was going to be the quiet time for the restaurant, and then in August, on 9 days' notice, we were told that the works were going to start, and it should have been something that was done in the winter time. It's severely impacted my business. We're talking big money, north of $100,000. And I just wanted to sort of voice my disappointment in how it was all dealt with. And I think there needs to be something put in place to make sure these sorts of things are done with a little bit more care, with small business owners in mind. Now that it has been done, I think there's a motion being put forward tonight that hopefully we can, you know, we can get a bit of help, myself and the other businesses there, There's talk of waiving outdoor dining fees. There's talk of trying to get us extra outdoor dining space. Yeah, I just didn't want the severity of how my business was impacted by it to be downplayed. Like there's talks of getting a couple of months of outdoor dining fees waived. It really needs to be a couple of years. You know, I've got financials here if anyone wants to see, but there's huge losses. And I didn't expect there would be no disruption to the business, but I just think it could have been dealt with a lot better than it was.
Thank
That's it.
you. Are there any questions? Councillor Gibson?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Binning, so, I note that you said you only had 9 days' notice that the works were about to commence. I think the minimum is 14 days. So how did that affect your business having so little notice when you obviously had to make massive changes? I don't know whether you had to lay off staff or whatever. How did that short period of notice impact on you?
Well, we have 15 people employed at my place, so it wasn't like you can just organise holidays for people with 9 days' notice. We had to absorb the wages and find things for them to do. While there was very little money coming in, down 50-60% some weeks. And yeah, it's just very hard to plan with that sort of notice. You know, it's running a small business is hard enough as it is without that, with kind of, I guess, a blasé sort of attitude to local business.
And is it correct that you paid your outdoor dining fees for the year up front? So before did you pay them up front? So you got a bit of, so you actually, so is that correct then? You actually paid for a period where you actually couldn't even use the pavement because you'd already paid up front?
Yeah, there were times we definitely couldn't use it just due to noise and dust, but then obviously the aesthetics of it all doesn't really attract people coming in when they're doing construction.
And would it have had less impact if it had happened midwinter rather than?
100%. I've got numbers to back it up. Very seasonal restaurants are. If it could have been done in winter, it could have been much less stressful for us and costly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Spencer?
Thank you, apologies, this work has disrupted your business. I guess my question is just around the upgrade to the area, whether that provides some, long-term benefit to your business, and how do you quantify the works that have been done in terms of adding value to your business?
Yeah, look, I don't think there was any thoughts that it wasn't going to look better. Of course, you wouldn't want to make it look worse. But that's sort of, long term, it may happen, it may not. The numbers, I've got numbers from last year and from the weeks previous, and yeah, it's caused huge mental sort of. I'm not one person to normally complain, but this has really been probably the toughest 2 months of my life. I'm behind on rent now. I'm behind on my repayments. Yeah, look, obviously, yeah, it looks nice. It does, but it could have been dealt with a lot better.
Are there any other questions for the speaker? Thank you very much for your participation.
Thanks for having me.
So Councillor Gibson, do you wish to move your motion?
Yes, well, I wish to, I'm going to amend what I've got there because there's information, because of the information provided by the director underneath, which I must point out, with all due respects to the author, is incorrect. But information was provided there. So I'm actually going to, so number 1 stands, and number 2, instead of preparing a report because we've got information, I'm going to have that council waive outdoor dining fees in Blythe Street, Kirribilli, for the 3 affected businesses. For a period of 12 months.
Is that the motion?
Yes.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor De Pruis.
I will speak to it now. Look, we do these streetscape works, and of course we do them with goodwill and the best planning we can possibly do them. But this one was delayed and delayed because some intervention by the local precinct group. The works were supposed to be done in the dead of winter, and then the changes that were asked for by the local precinct group. So that all happened anyway. So Mr.
So I just have to stop you there.
Yeah.
And correct you. It's
Yeah.
not because of a local precinct group. The report that we have, or the comment that we have from council staff who are managing the project, was that it was because of contractor availability that it was moved from July to September.
well, the works were delayed because of that, but anyway, I'll address the anomalies in this report shortly. Anyway, Mr. Binning, he'd just rebranded his restaurant, put up a new sign, got a write-up in Good Living, and then with 9 days' notice, we waltzed in to tell him we're about to start the works. Now, that wasn't the proper amount of notice. It should have been 2 weeks, but it actually should have been more than that. I mean, we must have known with more than 9 days' notice that these works were about to start. I think this was, I think it was pretty unacceptable that we would give any small business just 9 days' notice that we're about to start major works in front of their small business. We can, I walked by, actually, just if you want to pass these around.
Hold on, if you're going to
Oh, can
table
I just
something,
pass
you
it
need
over
to
to-
move
yeah.
that we table, except you tabling a document.
All right, I put forward that I just table
Is
pictures.
there a seconder? Councillor Porus, all those in favour? That's carried. You may table all those parts as well.
Thank you. So the impact of the works was immediate, even though the works weren't taking part in the piece of footpath right outside the restaurant. There was noise and dust, and an extremely ugly fence was erected, you know, just really close to the tables. I think we need to do better in terms of hoarding in future. We might be able to insist that that builders have some sort of more attractive fencing that provides, I don't know, there could be, we did it for our pool hoarding down, you know, down at Milson's Point. We could have done something that at least softened the impact of this very ugly fence. But I kept walking by and noticed that the restaurant on beautiful sunny days was absolutely empty. So this restaurant, you know, as everyone knows, rents are very high in Kirribilli and in most of our municipality, and it's tough for our small businesses to make their businesses succeed. We have closed shops all over the place. But this little restaurant, like most of the others, to survive, they open breakfast, lunch and dinner. So they had to close at breakfast and lunchtime, so lost all that trade. And in the evening service, from what I could see, it was, you know, there weren't a lot of customers because it just didn't feel pleasant and it was dirty and dusty, whatever. There's certainly mistakes in this statement by the Director of Open Space and Infrastructure. The works, it says here that the works were scheduled for 6 weeks. It was never 6 weeks, it was always 8 weeks, and the works are actually still going, so it'll continue on longer than 8 weeks. And then at the last minute, we decided to do works, laying new pavers up Broughton Street, so that's on the corner of these little businesses as well, so they're still being impacted. But I think the conclusion here is just totally wrong. It is acknowledged that there has been some impact to outdoor dining in these businesses. Well, sorry, it decimated their business for a period of 8 weeks. And I'm not talking about compensation here, I'm just talking about acknowledging the pain of these local businesses and giving them a waiver in their outdoor dining fees for a period of 12 months. This small business owner has actually paid for 2 months outdoor dining fee that he wasn't even able to use because he paid it up front. The business next door just has 2 little tables out the front, but he was impacted as well. He had to operate his business with his front door closed, so because of the noise and dust, so no one went in. And then we've got the little chocolate shop that has 1 table out the front. But I know the outdoor dining fees paid by this proprietor were 10,000 for the year.
That's your
Okay, if I can
5
just
minutes.
finish that, if I can just finish my sentence, thank you, Mayor. I know this proprietor's paid $10,000 for the year. So there are records showing the losses, which I think I would like that information to be handed forward. But we talk about our support for small businesses. We can talk and talk till we're blue in the face, but councillors, we actually need to demonstrate, do some action rather than just talking. 12 months for these 3 businesses who were affected
Thank you, Councillor.
is not unreasonable. Thank you.
Councillor Mutton.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm incredibly sympathetic for the operator of this business. I'm also very fearful of the precedent this might establish. Our council has been digging up pavements all over North Sydney. If we're going to be confronted each and every time we dig up a pavement with a claim for compensation, we will have opened Pandora's box. If our council in another time adopted a policy of, for argument's sake, waiving outdoor dining charges when the area is not available for use, I would have some sympathy for that. But just to waive outdoor dining charges for a year without regard to the precedent that would set is something I find very disturbing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Binning, for coming and telling us your story. It does matter to all of the councillors, I'm sure of that, and you see the emotion there that it was really impacting on you, and that's highly regrettable. I was certainly open to a report to determine any course of action that might be available, but I think that without seeing that such a report, it wouldn't be prudent to just make a decision. So that's my point of view there. Obviously that there was some impact. I think that's undoubtable, not being able to sit outside with the normal environment, but at the same time there was a medium-term gain there. So we certainly wish you well in your business, and hope that things turn up quickly, Mr. Binning, but I couldn't support just a decision made without seeing a report.
Thank you, Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I propose, first of all, also appreciate hearing the story and the disruption. I think this photo is particularly useful. I mean, I don't know that we can, in good conscience, be charging outdoor dining fees while work like this and fences like this are put up. So, if the proposer would welcome it, or I'm happy to put that a motion that council refunds the outdoor dining fee for the period of construction. Because this is, we're not what we're charging for is not really fit for service during this period. But I tend to agree with Councillor Martin that setting a refund every time the council touches something up for somebody's property, especially when that is adding long-term value, I think is a bad precedent to set.
Thank you, Councillor Dupouris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Binning, for coming and telling us about your story. First of all, I just wanted to say, Mr. Binning's not here asking for compensation. That's wrong. He's just asking council to take into consideration what he's been through and maybe waiving his outdoor fees. I don't think it sets a precedent, and I think lots of people in North Sydney would not think that that's excessive or demanding or setting any type of precedent. I think it's very logical to help this gentleman out because small businesses are the backbone of our community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mayor, can you just clarify, do we have a foreshadowed motion to waive the outdoor dining fees for a period equal to the?
I think I'll foreshadow that as a motion. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Just before I give Councillor Gibson the right to reply, I just wanted to speak in support of Councillor Martin's position. I do believe it will set a precedent, and a precedent in which we've already started on the early works for the whole of Willoughby Road upgrades. And if we were to then start to refund or waive outdoor dining fees in the same position, and we're then proposing next financial year to do it for Cremorne Plaza, this is the bread and butter of what council does. There was a master plan that was adopted for Kirribilli for 2021. There was a special rate raised in order to fund these works, and it is like the other speakers, it is regrettable that Mr. Binning has experienced what he has, but in the scheme of things, it's a relatively short period. Access was maintained to the business, but with all due respect, this will set a dreadful precedent, and it's a decision that you make without understanding really what the ramifications are to council's financial position going forward in a year in which we've made very difficult deferrals and cuts for all sorts of things. And so on that basis, I'm reluctantly voting against the motion. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to exercise a right to reply?
Yes, I do. And I'd like to start, it was wrong for Councillor Mutton to use the word compensation. I never mentioned the word compensation, and that's a bit of a legal manoeuvre, I believe, because I'm not talking about compensation. We have waived fees before for our small businesses when they've had hard times, like during COVID. Here I've shown you photos. We charged this poor business operator has paid up front for something that he couldn't use. And I hear the mayor saying, well, access was maintained at all times. It was so dusty and so noisy and so unpleasant. Have you seen the hoarding there? There wasn't even any attempt to make the hoarding reasonably attractive, like we did when we're developing our own facility down at North Sydney Pool. It is not unreasonable. It's not going to set a precedent. Most of our streetscape works take place out of shops that don't have outdoor dining. That's like the whole of Neutral Bay, the whole of Military Road. They don't have outdoor dining there they're affected, but they're not affected in the same way as this business. I'm just noticing tonight we're going to be talking about our financial statements. So councillors, we have spent, our legal fees have exceeded our original budget by $2 million, $2 million. While we've taken out interim heritage orders here and interim heritage orders there and fought things in court, exceeded our generous budget by $2 million. Yet you are saying now on the floor of council that you can't assist this small business owner who actually is also a resident. And I mean, I can feel the distress. It's making me feel upset just knowing the distress and the financial harm that have been caused to this small business owner and resident. Is this how we treat people? While we go over budget by $2 million on our legal fees and without any thought to say, oh, another interim heritage order here. Yep, we'll vote for that. Yep, we'll fight that in court. We have also in the same budget spent to pay out key management personnel. We have spent, it's about I'll find the right about here, So to get rid of senior staff, which hasn't given anything to anyone this,
Point
That-
of
That
order,
point,
point of
that
order.
is
Getting rid of
a point of order,
yeah.
nobody got rid of senior staff.
Well,
And
to-
no, councillor
Well,
Gibson, I think you are really walking on very difficult territory
alright.
here, and I'd ask that you withdraw and apologise.
I'll withdraw and apologise,
you,
but
and
I'll just
continue.
point out that it's in our own financial report on page 69 of 92. Having to, well, it's twice described here, Nick, pay out of employment contracts.
Councillor Gibson, I
$1.7
called you to order because
million
you said get rid of, and that is a.
That I
that
shouldn't
is
have
a
said that.
Not.
Well,
what
I
happened.
shouldn't have said that. I do apologise for that, Mayor. But to pay out staff contracts, another $1.7 million. I mean, I think in this council, and also when we go here, not proceeding with drawing down I'll have to find the paperwork here as well, not proceeding with drawing down our loan for the pool when we're advised to do that, and messing around for 2 months. That cost us millions, councillors.
Again, I'm going to call you to order. There was no messing around. You understand that you are required by the Code of Meeting Practice not to impute improper motives
Well, we
to other
deferred.
councillors.
Well, I'll take
Right,
that back and say
Thank you,
deferred.
withdraw and apologise.
Well, we didn't
Thank
mess
you.
around against the advice from the then general manager. We deferred it to a meeting and then it had to come back to another meeting, so it was deferred for 2 months. That little decision cost us millions. So, you know,
Again,
and
I ask
that
you withdraw and apologise. It didn't cost us millions. You didn't have.
it didn't cost us millions.
Now, if you would withdraw and apologise.
Oh, well, it cost us a great deal of, I'll report it, withdraw and apologise, it cost us a great deal of money. We constantly make decisions here that cost us money. But here we have a small business owner. How are our communities going to be if we don't support our small business owners and make sure that our villages,
Thank you, councillor
thrive?
Gibson, that's your 5
I know, but
And
Mayor,
again, I ask that you finish your sentence and sit
I
down.
will do that, but I will point out that,
You've now had 10 minutes.
about
Tony.
3 minutes of my 5 minutes was taken up.
Well, that's your
by you.
choice
Well,
to
that's-
say those things. or
Well,
not.
it's.
You would sit
it's-
down, thank you.
I'm just going to finish my sentence, please, Mayor. That's.
Finish your sentence.
I will finish my sentence. Councillors, a lot of you ran on platforms of supporting small businesses, yet here we have a situation where a small business has suffered because of poor council process. He's just hired new staff and then we tell him in 9 days' time we're going to be starting
Thank you, councillor.
upgrade
Gibson.
works.
If you could
Okay,
sit down.
it's time to actually act and not
Thank
just
you.
talk.
I'm going to put the
Thank
motion, all those in favour?
Sorry, which motion are we doing? Is
There's
there?
only one motion. It's councillor Gibson's motion that you seconded. We'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against. The motion is lost. Councillor Spenceley, did you wish to move a foreshadowed motion?
Yeah, look, taking on your comments, I would move a foreshadowed motion along the lines that I presented, which is that, but change it to the council investigates creating a policy and provide a report on not charging for outdoor dining fees while there's major construction work and disruption done in the area where the service that we provide is not entirely useful, and investigates that period in Bligh Street as to whether that applies retrospectively as well.
So the motion is one, that we have a report on a policy relating to outdoor dining fees during disruption caused by public domain works, and 2, that the experience in Bligh Street be investigated as part of that report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Burke. Is there any discussion? I put the item, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. We'll try again for the other item that was brought forward. We have a speaker for item 10.3, the Parraween Street post-exhibition report. Is Ms Hill available?
Yeah.
Thank you. The speaker is attending remotely. Jennifer Hill.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, so could you put your video on? If it's possible for you to attend via video, our code of meeting practice requires that we see you. Yes, thank you. Good
Great.
evening, Ms. Hill. If
Okay.
you would say your name and who you represent, and then you may address council.
Okay, thank you. My name's Jennifer Hill. I'm a Director of Architectural Projects. I'm a heritage expert with about 40 years experience, and I'm here to talk about the issue of whether the buildings are meeting the threshold for being listed as heritage items. I've been engaged by the applicant for the client, for the site as part of the redevelopment, and also for the Land and Environment Court matter that preceded. So I think the point that I think is quite relevant here is that many of the things, and it's my understanding that you've been given the heritage impact statement that we prepared. Many of the things in our report agree with the various reports that have been prepared by Lucas Stapleton, such that Parraween Street is very comparable with a number of other residential streets that are already in heritage conservation areas. The key distinction between the northern side of Parraween Street and the streetscapes of the conservation area is the issue of integrity. This is also confirmed by Lucas Stapleton, that the greatest impact on the integrity of Parraween Street streetscape is the introduction of off-street parking with front yards to cottages, because Parraween Street does not benefit from a rear lane access, and that Parraween Street does not meet the threshold for listing as a heritage conservation area. So we're in agreement with all of those issues. Also, during the Land and Environment Court appeal, we undertook joint reporting and agreed on quite a number of numerous other things that related to the significance of the builders who built the various houses in Parraween Street, that John Connor was not a builder of significance, that Charles Blackman was not known to be an important developer, that Harbert Brothers were known, and in a subsequent report that was prepared by Lucas Stapleton and is similar to research that we also undertook, that they have actually undertaken, I think it's about 74 buildings that are located in the local government area, many of which are retained to a high level of integrity and sit within heritage conservation areas and are currently protected. So really the key differences in the findings in the Heritage Report by Architectural Projects and the various reports by Lucas Stapleton is that we don't agree that 50 Parraween Street is an example of vernacular Georgian revival. It simply utilises a feature which is quite characteristic of all classical buildings, and that 52 to 56 are a row of terraces, but their relationship has been compromised by the moving of the front facade back a metre to accommodate a car stand, and adding a very large first floor addition to the rear that's highly visible from the street. And that overall, the alterations to the buildings in Parraween Street that extend from changing their original face brick finish, their original roof finish, removing their front fences, removing their front gardens, which accommodate car stands, which has also resulted in removing the street trees, infilling verandas, making adjustments to the buildings. All of those features have negatively impacted on the integrity of the houses, which is the reason why they don't reach the threshold for listing as a group as a heritage conservation area.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. That's your 3 minutes.
Could I give you a motion that we give an extra couple of minutes to Ms. Hill? I think I'll
Is there a
just, I'll listen
second
to
for
this.
that? Thank you, councillor Porus. All those in favour? That's carried. You may continue.
Thank you. And that the fact that more than half of the buildings that were within a strip of buildings that didn't meet the threshold for listing as a conservation area are able to reach the threshold for listing as heritage items is probably the fundamental difference between the reports. Usually the standard for listing a heritage item is a higher standard, and as part of the work that both groups have done, there's been an extensive comparative assessment with all of the other equivalent types of buildings, workers' cottages, speculative federation development buildings by Harbert. In the end, it comes down to an opinion, and in my opinion, the level of integrity of key aspects of the significance, such as their front presentation, the fence, the front garden, the treatment of the front facade, they're the aspects which have really undermined the significance of those buildings. And on that basis, it's my opinion that they don't meet the threshold for listing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the speaker? Councillor Gibson?
Is it correct that the new owners propose to, if their DA goes ahead and is approved, that they would keep some of the houses there on Parrawhite Street as part of the redevelopment?
That's correct. They're keeping it not because it's felt that the buildings reach the threshold for individual heritage listing, but that, and this was a decision that they came to before receiving any heritage advice from myself or other people, that the buildings in the street had a certain character and that they're actually being retained for their character features, which eventually means the same thing. They're being kept.
Okay. And how many of those buildings?
52 to 56.
Okay.
And there's another 4 in the group from 58 to 88 that are being.
So it's proposed they'll be integrated into the development.
That's correct. They would be retained as small units for independent living or for physiotherapists or different sorts of uses that are suitable to be able to use an existing building like that for. Yeah.
No, that's all. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
Right.
I have a question as a follow-up. Isn't it correct that it's proposed to demolish them and then rebuild them?
It's it has been proposed to reconstruct it, but that was due to some complexities with the car parking. The current examination of this is that the buildings will be retained and supported underneath. As you can appreciate, it can be complicated to do that. And at the time that the documents were submitted, they were going to reconstruct them, but their current approach is that they are retaining them and over the top of the car park excavation, which is possible. Yeah.
Any other questions of the speaker? Thank you for your participation, Ms. Hill.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Berricky.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Spenceley. Is there any discussion?
I'll reserve my right to reply. Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to say, I've listened to Ms. Hill, who spoke very eloquently there. I've also raised concerns, and we'll raise them again when we get to this item, about the excessive amount this council is spending in Land and Environment Court, or what I consider excessive amount. $2 million over quite a high budget. So I will be voting no to this.
Thank you. Is there Councillor Santa?
Thank you, Mayor. I note that the gateway determination requires another review by an independent heritage consultant of submissions and heritage studies already undertaken, so that the opponents of this proposal, who believe that these properties have lost or have never had any heritage value, can witness yet another review of the heritage studies already undertaken, an independent review. I also note that the Land and Environment Court has dismissed council's imposition of.
It was the applicant.
Oh, sorry, the applicant. Sorry, yes, sorry. Yes, the
The
property owners appeal against. I'm misreading my own notes here. Sorry, the property agents appeals against council's imposition of IHOs on these properties, and for those two reasons, I support the motion.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Barry, did you wish to exercise your own reply?
I will briefly, Mayor. I think we've all read the report and we're all very familiar with it. I would just note that this recommendation has overwhelming community support. If you read it, support. Our community really value their amenity in this area. We do often feel that we are under attack at the moment. And our community have asked us to stand up for them, and I think that's what we should be doing. And therefore, I urge everyone to support the recommendation.
I put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That is carried. That takes us back to the agenda, item 10.1, the financial statements. Is there a Councillor Berry, the recommendation? Is there a seconder? Councillor Welsh.
And I want to speak to those.
Councillor.
So that is me. I just want to point out I'll be voting against this because there are things in here that concern me greatly. If we look on page 7 of 92, again, I will have to point out that we've exceeded, what was the, first of all, a question through you, Mayor, to the General Manager. What was the original budget for legal fees, General Manager? We've exceeded that by $2 million.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll have to take that on notice because within the financial statements, that's just within the materials and services category.
Thank you. Continue.
Okay, good. So I'm increasingly concerned about this council's propensity to send things off to the Land and Environment Court. Our residents certainly do expect us to preserve our history and our heritage, and that's why I support a municipality-wide heritage study, so that we stop wasting money in Land and Environment Court on interim heritage orders. So I'm concerned about that. I'm also looking at page 69 out of 92. And it was 1.7 million in payouts for key management personnel over that period. That's a lot of money, councillors, and perhaps I think some of our residents might think that money could have been spent better elsewhere. So I'll be voting no to this, and I'll continue to vote no until we can get our legal fees under control.
Are there, your microphone, please. Are there any other speakers? Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that we gave a really quick briefing of some of the main top level figures for our community, because many people don't read the details, and if watching online or later or here today, you can understand some of the big picture that we deal with. It does talk about the income statement with a net operating surplus of $24.5 million, but then when we go to net operating surplus, it's actually a deficit of $2.3 million. And this was impacted by a reduction in assessed value for $2.7 million for council's investment properties. So largely speaking, you could say we're relatively breaking even. And I think we operate in fairly difficult financial circumstances. In particular, when you look back, and there's a thing called financial assistance grants that come from the federal government. Traditionally, they came in at around 1% of federal government tax revenue. These days, as many of us who've been to the state conferences and federal local government conferences would be aware, federal governments have now cut that to about half of that, around about 0.5%. So that has a massive impact on local governments across Australia trying to do things. And I was reading an interesting article last week regarding the Local Government Association of Queensland. and they moved a motion to increase or return these grants back to 1% of total federal government revenue. That would make a massive difference to our community and communities across Australia, and I think we have to talk about that at every opportunity that we get. In particular, an issue very passionate for me is the never-ending growth in housing and population. They're federal government decisions, so they need to be matched with appropriate funding from the federal government, who takes the personal income tax revenue, the lion's share of tax revenue through that growth, and yet it cascades down to state and local government to deliver a lot of the infrastructure or the costs. So there is in fact a vertical fiscal imbalance in our government system. So I would just call on here today for those who have friends in the federal government to lobby for a return of financial assistance grants to 1% of total federal government revenue. And but overall, I say well done to our council for a solid financial result that I think shows that we are prudent with our residents' money. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other speakers? Before I turn it over to Councillor Berry or Councillor Martin.
Mayor, like Councillor Gibson, I'm concerned about the quantum of legal fees. But I would also be very concerned if our council didn't defend its various positions in the court. And regrettably, that can't be done cheaply. If we're going to take exception to the amount we spend on legal fees, the time to do that is during the regular briefing on what we're spending and on what matters we're litigating. That gives us a golden opportunity to buy into it. But to hit the headline figure, it doesn't help. And it sends the wrong message, both to the community and to the executive of the council. What we want our executive to do is implement our decisions. And if that involves spending money on legal fees, so be it. If any councillor objects to particular expenses, the time to do that is when we're considering the regular reports. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Before I give Councillor Berry a right of reply, I'm just find myself again speaking in support of Councillor Mutton. That $2 million comes from two really large pieces of litigation. The first is the MLC building, which is decades of council policy around that building and protecting the North Sydney CBD. And the second was the cost of the Noakes floating dry dock development appeal, which was a 9-day hearing in the Land and Environment Court in which council was ultimately successful. That both of those, in my view, are important pieces of public interest litigation, and that is the purpose of our legal budget. That is what our community overwhelmingly demands of us. Very little of that legal budget has gone towards interim heritage orders. Most of it is on that larger public interest litigation, and that is the purpose of the council. So I thought it must be said, and thank you, Councillor Mutton, for your thoughts on that item. Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in regards to, I think there's some commentary around the North Sydney Olympic Pool loan amount. I think, you know, as noted in the report here, council took out a $31 million loan to fund the pool. We took that out, and the interest rate is 4.24%, which I think in the current environment, while it could have been potentially a little tighter, but it is an incredible result, and I think council did a great result looking at 4.24% loan in for 20 years. Thank you.
The right of reply from Councillor Berry. Oh, Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councillor Mutton and Councillor Burke, although Councillor Burke, I wouldn't be hanging our financial statements on getting any money out of any federal or state government anytime soon, if I was you. I would like to thank particularly the General Manager and her staff. This has been a really tough year. This council has taken on a huge debt down at the pool, And we are continuing to having to make really difficult decisions about what we deliver for our community at the moment, because we have a big hole that needs filling, and that isn't going away anytime soon. We also are going to have to really look forward as to how council operates as things tighten again. Our reliance on our traditional revenue streams is going to have to come to some kind of end, and we are going to have to look at how we finance the business of council and provide the services that we do. This council is an incredibly fortunate council. It is in a strong financial position. It has a fantastically asset-rich portfolio, but it is the day-to-day numbers and the day-to-day money that we need to provide the services. So I'd like to congratulate again the council staff and the decisions that this council has had to make, which have been really tough decisions. There are things that this council would have loved to have delivered. Having come in on a very short term, I'm sure everyone had their list of things, but we have been hamstrung by a $31 million debt and the continual funding of the North Sydney Pool, which this council has taken on board, accepted responsibility and is moving forward. So to deliver this kind of result is an absolute a fantastic achievement, but it's nothing no laurels to be sat on here, and no guarantees that I know Councillor Burke is disappointed that the financial assistance grants are at 0.5. I suspect they're going south before they're going north. I commend the recommendation.
Thank you. I'll put the item. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you. That is carried. That takes us to the Code of Conduct statistics.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Berkey,
Councillor
seconded by,
Point of order, I think, councillor.
I have a,
Wants to excuse himself.
thank you. It was moved by, the recommendation is moved by Councillor Berkey. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Santa. Councillor Berkey, do you wish to speak to the item?
I'll hold my right to fight.
Thank you. Councillor Gibson.
And I just had some general questions. Thank you, Mayor. I'm just looking at down the bottom page 4 of 8, the overview of the complaints and the costs. Can the general manager, these are all just very general questions. Can you tell us the legal obligations, when complaints come in that are anonymous? Is it legislated, or is it in the act somewhere?
Madam Mayor, that would be the procedures for the Code of Conduct issued through the Office of Local Government.
And so does that deal with, I might get you to, if that could just be said to me. So there's a section in there on anonymous, how we deal with anonymous complaints, are there?
The procedures for the model for the Code of Conduct outline all procedures in relation to the administration of the Code of Conduct.
Good, I'll have another look at that. And oh, that's all on that one. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the item? I put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. We'll invite Councillor Laporte to return. Thank you. That takes us to item 10.4, investment loans and borrowings. Councillor Berkey.
I'm happy to move the recommendation, Mayor.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Spenceley. Is there any discussion?
And I was again just going to point out, we go to page 6 of 27. It talks about the TCORP loan, and we're quite Councillor Spenceley's quite right. We got it at a reasonable rate, but we couldn't got it at a much cheaper rate. So the delay between February 22 and April 22 did cost us, and we were advised by our staff to proceed to draw down that loan. So I think we you know, we will spend more money because of that that decision making.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? That's carried. That takes us to 10.5, livability. Councillor Welsh, if you wish to move the item.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Is there a second? Councillor Lands. Councillor Welsh, wish to speak to the item?
I'm saddened to read that the sense of personal safety has dropped out of the top 5 strengths, but it was good to see that evidence of council government management had replaced it, increasing 18% since the 2021 census. Certainly given me confidence that the leadership in this new council, with our changes in direction, is impacting the organization and resulting in improvements to our lived spaces. A decrease in the satisfaction of housing prices is no surprise given the housing crisis. And the ease of driving and parking is still very negative at -5%, but it has improved. Certainly as the chair of the Sustainable Transport Reference Group, I know that council and council staff are working hard to make using sustainable transport a preferred method for getting around, as evidenced by the recently completed West Street cycle path and streetscape improvement, with more in the pipeline. Hopefully, with more initiatives like this, we will continue to see improvements in this benchmark. I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Welsh, for that. I was just wondering if you would take on in your motion that we provide copies of this to the precincts and all reference groups and all chambers of commerce, and make sure that it's on our website, just so that people are aware that the report is out. Thank you.
You take that on as a seconder. Is there any further discussion? So Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question for you to the General Manager or relevant director. I know that the livability census is opt-in, and the report states that it's not as representative as it could be of our community. There was a skew in terms of gender as well as age. So I was just wondering, is the methodology prescribed to us as to how we do it, or is there an opportunity to change that methodology of selection? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this survey wasn't administered by council. This was a broader survey that was undertaken with 43 councils. And as the report said, is opt-in, and therefore it's not like our community satisfaction surveys whereby we will call and look for demographically matched contributions.
Thank you. Is there no further discussion? Do you wish to exercise right of reply? No. Put the item. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. And that brings us to the remaining motions. Councillor Gibson, notice 15 of 23, celebrations with small business. Wish to move your motion?
Yes, look, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will move that this, yes, I'll move it as it stands.
Is there a second? Councillor LaPoise.
And I will speak to this. This was brought to my attention by a local member of our community. What I'm looking at here is the general inquiry form that this small business filled in to make application to hold a tiny celebration. I must say, most of the small businesses around just have a celebration without coming to council. So this poor small business was really trying to do the right thing. And what have we done? We have said no. I think, again, I think a quick call by the officer that perhaps was handling this general inquiry to the small business owner could have been useful, or even a visit down there. When I went down to visit Ms. Lynn, who is the owner of this small business and has been for 20 years, it's pretty obvious, well, it's extremely obvious that English is her second language. And she really didn't know, she's just sort of filled the form in on face value. And ticked the boxes here, and then we've just said no. So it's a shame someone didn't also pick up on that and contact this small business owner and say, look, you can do it, but you've just got to make sure that let's, come up and I'll see you. Let's just adjust your form and make sure that you leave a 1.8 metre walkway along the pathway while you're holding your tiny celebration, and just have, you can have some music inside your salon, but no amplified music on the street. We could have handled it that way, and I think that would have been more appropriate, because she was quite disappointed and couldn't understand why her request was just met with a no. I think we should attempt to interact more with these small business operators when they're filling in these forms. And I'm happy to help her fill the form in again if she needs to, and just suggest that this little celebration was to happen on a Sunday. There isn't much happening in Kirribilli on a Sunday morning, and if anyone that comes to Kirribilli knows the crowds that we have, or 3 times a month for our general market that funds our Kirribilli Neighbourhood Centre, there's never any room to walk there during those market days. But if we're being really strict and saying, well, you can't do it because there might not be room for people to walk through the crowds. I just think that I think we should let this go ahead, and we should really encourage. This is what she was suggesting, is she had a few friends that were going to dress up and just do a little dragon dance. We're not talking about a huge festival down the main street of Kirribilli. It's something very tiny, and I would like to think that if I go down and just help her fill the form in again, that she will be permitted to hold her small function.
Councillor Stanton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I have some sympathy for this, because it's not as if we haven't had functions of this kind in the area. I went to one recently in 43 Ridge Street, the art gallery there. I think a function of this kind should be encouraged. It's great to have community participation. Perhaps there were, if what she was proposing was violating a regulation in some way, perhaps a little bit of counselling to ensure that she doesn't violate any of our necessary regulations, especially as far as footpath access is concerned. But I think in general, if we could advise that it's best to give advice and to give counsel to businesses of this kind, so that they can conduct this type of function.
Councillor Berry. Thank you, Mayor. Could I just confirm, Councillor Gibson, you're moving the motion that's on the paper?
That's what's
That's the motion is before us.
Well,
that's what's before us.
I'm
The
just
answer to that
double
question.
checking. Thank you, Mayor. So I can't support this because I don't think this council should be saying that a business is permitted to hold an event when we actually don't know about the event. This is really in the operational world of council. I would be happy with a motion that says that council and the Sixth Sense Hair Salon meet to discuss what may be possible. I'm not comfortable that council, that the general manager is assisting the management of Sixth Sense to apply for the permit. I think what really needs to happen, and this really shouldn't be, before the council, that the phone call could have easily have gone offline to the director or to the general manager, and they could have picked it up now. So it's kind of unfortunate that it's on the agenda, but I can't support the motion in its current form. But I would be happy to support that Sixth Sense, that the general manager ensure that Sixth Sense and council discuss what options are available to celebrate the 20th anniversary of their successful business.
Would you take
I'm
that
happy to amend it, so it reads that way.
on? The seconder, councillor Porus, you take that on?
Yes, I'll take
Thank
that.
you. Before I offer you a right of reply, I just say I support that action because it may be that a solution includes other parts of Kirribilli, not least Burton Street for the Dragon. It might be that there are practical solutions that allow people to walk and celebrate in Kirribilli at the same time. Councillor Gibson, do you wish to exercise? your
Yeah,
right of reply?
just briefly, just in response to what councillor Bergie said. We do these jobs as councillors and it takes a lot of time and it's not always that easy to get in touch with the directors. This is a small matter, a small local matter. Yeah, I'm not putting forward that I support affordable housing over heritage or that I want to preserve rows of houses on Parawen Street.
Point of order.
This is-
Sorry, thank you. Yep.
Are we not
Again.
in violent agreement here?
Yeah, we are, but I'm just.
And again, I'll just remind you though, that if you can make your remarks
Yeah.
without suggesting unfavourable
No, I'm
remarks or
not- I'm not
imputing
doing-
improper
I did
motives to
not-
other council
did not do
officials.
that.
Well, when you
I
do
did
that
not do that.
comparison,
I
that is
did
what
not-
it does.
I did
So
not do that.
continue, please.
I did not do that. Someone said that this shouldn't have come to council. Well, I say yes, it should have. We do, we bring all sorts of things to council, you know, affordable housing, heritage, bike lanes, this, that, and this is a tiny matter. This is a tiny local matter, but it's very important to the owner of this small business and her customers. So I will put it on the agenda. We are local government. And I will continue to raise things that deal with local matters, such as a small business having a difficult time when we've ripped up the paving outside their restaurant, such as when a small business owner who obviously has English as a second language had trouble filling a form in and wasn't given some assistance on how to do it. I will put these matters on the agenda. I think it's my job as a local councillor. It's local government and I will continue to raise local matters.
Thank you, councillor Gibson. I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Lamb, your motion, if you wish to move it. Yes. Is there a seconder? Councillor Welsh, wish to speak to your motion? Yes, please.
Thank you. This motion is about inclusion and respect of a group traditionally marginalised and ignored in our community. And what a better way to promote this community than the celebration of life and love. This motion is also about starting a conversation how best to represent the LGBTQ+ community, which in the future will lead to providing a agency and a platform where they themselves can dictate how they want to celebrate and participate in our community. First, we simply need to reach out with an invitation and to once and for all have a working flagpole for our rainbow flag we can finally be shown in our backyard as something that should have happened years ago. Overall, we are all members of our community to be seen, to feel respected, and to stand as a valued, included member of our community. This should have been happened long ago.
Thank you. Councillor Welsh.
Embracing and supporting the LGBTQ+ community is not just an act of compassion and empathy. It is an essential step towards building a more inclusive and equitable society. By accepting and celebrating the diverse identities and orientations within our community, we promote the fundamental principles of human rights, equality, and respect for all individuals. It's crucial to understand that being LGBTQ+ is a natural aspect of human diversity, and discrimination or prejudice only serves to perpetuate harm and inequality. When we stand with and uplift the LGBT+ community, we contribute to a more accepting world where discrimination, fostering a society that values love and acceptance over bias and hatred. Embracing and supporting our LGBTQ+ community is not only a moral imperative, but also a crucial step towards building a brighter, more inclusive future for all. I'm looking forward to see the suggestions the council staff develop in order to celebrate the Sydney 2024 Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras. And I support this terrific motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? I'll put the item. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you all for your participation tonight. That's the close of the meeting.
We're going to use my phone.
Oh, thanks.